this is the site. This ground I'm standing on is the place where the baptism in the Holy Spirit was poured out on Charles Parham and his school right here at Stone's Folly. From here, went to Houston. That's where he met, as you all know, William Seymour, which led to the Azusa Revival.
Yeah, they were just digging around over here, and definitely old brick, but if you see the pictures of it, it was a red brick.
Yeah.
And this is not a red brick house. So it was probably around here.
So you actually found this over here?
Yeah, right where that dirt is, because we had a electrical done.
Right.
So yeah, it's a holy place where
it is.
Holy Spirit came, and I think you can see that just right in this neighborhood. There's like 4 churches.
Right.
There's a whole bunch of churches around here, so something draws people. It's gotta be the Holy Spirit.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Long for Truth. My name is Daniel Long. We're continuing our series on the fraudulent activities of the early Pentecostal movement. Now, last couple of weeks, we've done videos on John G. Lake. This week, we're shifting gears a little bit, and I'm going to be talking about the founder of Pentecostalism, Charles Fox Parham. Now, I do want to get back to Lake because, and hopefully within the next week or two, we will, because there's an incident that took place while Lake was in South Africa in 1909, where Lake actually claimed to have talked to his dead wife and received permission from her to marry his fiancée. So that's a very interesting story, and hopefully within the next week or so, I'll have that all together to show you. Right now, I want to talk about Charles Fox Parham and an incident that took place in 1902, just 1 year after the whole Stone's Folly incident, where the second Pentecost is supposed to have taken place, and the Holy Spirit fell, and everyone in Charles Parham School spoke in tongues. So this is about a year after that incident. And so here's the story. Charles Parham, the founder of Pentecostalism, was involved with a con artist. And this con artist was arrested in 1902. Now, Parham needed money. He needed money for his school. And I think personally that he found in this con artist by the name of George Francis a way to get that money. And he was, here's a guy that's supposed to be a man of faith, right? He's supposed to be, relying on God. And you read the articles that, he was in, some of these newspaper articles of him being interviewed and how he just relied on God for faith, for finances. Just relied on God to give the money, and told stories of this, of all of these miraculous things that took place for him to be able to pay his bills and things like that. And yet he gets involved with this guy that claims he can make gold.
Tell me your name.
Rumpelstiltskin.
Out of the secret formula that he's found, this formula that God gave him through prayer. Now, here's the thing. Whether Charles Parham was willfully trying to scam people with George Francis, or whether he was deceived, really isn't the point. The point is he himself was involved with this man. Either way, Parham was involved with a con artist. And if Parham was deceived, that really makes the founder of Pentecostalism look really, really silly. Let's look at the article now. We're going to go over here to newspapers.com. That is where we are. And we are going to look at this article right here on November 7th, 1902. All right, and this is the Sedalia Democrat. And the title of the article is Could Make Gold. George A. Francis found many easy victims. Right there. And there are other articles about George Francis and how there were several people that were conned by him. But we're going to focus right now on this blind man and his wife that Francis took advantage of. So, secret given by God. That's the secret to make gold. Notwithstanding, this defendant is held to criminal court sum of $500. I'm going to zoom in here just a bit. There we go. George A. Francis, 1738, McGee Street, president of the Francis Chemical Gold Company, the young man who posed as an alchemist and who induced Joseph E. Wilcoxon, a blind man, and several other persons to take stock in his company on the representation that he could manufacture the yellow metal, was bound over to the criminal court by Justice Ben Spitz this morning at the conclusion of his preliminary examination, says the Kansas City Star of Thursday. His bond was fixed at $500. The charge against Francis, that of obtaining money under false pretenses, was filled by Mr. Wilcoxon, 210 East 14th Street, who bought 50 shares of stocks for himself and wife, paying $50 for it. Mr. Wilcoxon testified that Francis, accompanied by another man, came to his house and showed him and his wife samples of the gold produced by the process. He also told of the organization of the company and how he was taken by Francis to a pawn shop where a sample of gold was examined and pronounced genuine. Then it was that Wilcoxon, not being able to see for himself, but believing in the statements of the alchemist and others, parted with his money and was given 2 certificates of stock in return. These certificates were produced in evidence. They are elaborately engraved and bear across their face in large letters the words Francis Chemical Gold Company, capital stock, $25,000. Now, here is the part where poor Charles Fox Parham, who claims to have had no idea, was involved here with Mr. Francis. The Reverend Charles F. Parham, who conducted a Bible school in Kansas City last summer and held religious meetings in the streets, was the next witness. He said he had known Francis since last April, becoming acquainted with the alchemist and his companion at the conclusion of one of his meetings. So evidently, that is where he met George A. Francis at one of his religious meetings. Francis, he said, seemed filled with desire, just filled with desire to help the witness in his work, and finally informed him of the secret process. You see how silly this sounds, folks? This man of God here, this guy that is supposed to have been the one who brings in the second Pentecost there at his school in Topeka, Kansas, Stone's Folly, this guy here, who is the founder of the movement, not saying that he spread the movement, that would have been William Seymour, and what took place at Azusa, but it was Parham who initially claimed that, tongues fell on him and his students there in 1901 at Stone's Folly. This guy, okay? Francis, he said, seemed filled with a desire to help the witness in his work, and finally informed him of the secret process. Francis had told the minister that he had learned the name of one chemical necessary to the manufacture of gold from God, and that he believed he had been called on to uplift humanity with the wealth that should come to him. Again, this really looks kind of sinister, doesn't it? He said, this is Parham speaking again, he said, the witness continued, that as he was kneeling in his room praying, he suddenly heard the word whispered to him, and he rose immediately. What word? That one word that led him to be able to make the gold. It was that secret ingredient that he needed to make gold. So we'll read that again. He said, the witness continued, that as he was kneeling in his room praying, he suddenly heard the word whispered to him, and he rose immediately, knowing that he had power to make gold. He asked the minister's aid in the undertaking, promising him that a portion of the proceeds of the company should be given to the school. So that was Parham's reason for getting involved with this guy. He was founding the company not as a money-making scheme, he said, but in his desire to help humanity. When anyone asked how the process was working, Francis always referred to the jars that he had set and put the investors off until the chemical action be completed. So we see here then that Parham, at the very least, was involved with this alchemist, this con artist. And again, whether or not he was willfully trying to deceive folks, that isn't the point I want to make here. The point I want to make is that he was involved with a con artist. He knew the guy. He was going to get money from this guy. But personally, folks, come on. I mean, can we honestly say that someone would be naive enough to believe that God would give anyone the secret ingredient to just make gold and, to better humanity? I just don't see how in the world Parham couldn't have known this. I guess he could have been deceived, but again, that in and of itself makes the founder of Pentecostalism look really, really silly. Thanks for watching.